Angela Giles here with another episode of Savage Angel, and I've got the most amazing woman on today. Her name is Erin Khan, and I'm excited to introduce you to her. So, Erin, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, Angela, thanks for hosting and having me here. Really excited to get into some of the discussion topics that we have. So, before we do that, a little bit about me. Born and raised Long Island, New York. Came out to LA for school, studied civil engineering at USC. Fight on for any
Yep.
Trojans out there. And then my senior year, I had an internship as a project engineer renovating one of the buildings on campus. Pretty much the rest is history. So that's kind of how I got into construction. And then I naturally just had a curiosity about tech, how to improve a lot of the manual processes that I saw on the site. So for me coming in as a fresh grad, I was like, wow, there's a lot of paper. Like, what's going on here? And so I really saw that as an opportunity. So after a few years here in SoCal, working on various historical renovation projects, I went over to Suffolk Construction specifically to focus on operations tech and innovation. Very exciting. Had a lot of fun on the team there, focusing just on that stuff. Eventually wanted to move on from big corporate. So today, I have my consulting firm, which supports both contractors as well as startups with bringing technology to operational building processes and construction teams. So that's
I
what gets me going.
love that. You are like the epitome of things I love. Like, I love working with construction and trades. Obviously, I do marketing, sales, and AI, but I love tech. Like, tech is my Like, I love tech. Like, I'll get on late at night, I wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning, I'm on, like, looking at some new tech thing because it's fun, it's fascinating, it gives me my adrenaline junkie rush, and there we go. So, let's talk a little bit more about tech. Tell me what you think as it relates to the construction industry as a whole. What percentage do you think is really using tech to its full advantage? Because quite frankly, I've ran across some contractors, some trades that are still doing pen and paper,
hmm
estimates.
Yeah. So I think the key point in your question there was to its full advantage,
Yeah.
which that's very, very, very rare, right? Even the best of the best, most resourced, large teams, whatever, most strategic. Even those teams have some pitfalls and underutilization that they're seeing with their tech adoption. So there is a wide spectrum. So to your point, like there's absolutely some of the firms out there that are still, not digital yet, right? And maybe they're stuck for a variety of reasons. But even on that other side of the spectrum where you do have, top leaders in construction, technology, innovation leading the pack, there's still always a little bit of gap with how well they're going to be using that tech solution. And I think that's just the nature of change management because it ultimately comes down to, do the team members who are using the tech know which buttons to press? Are they engaged in it? So it relies on that human factor ultimately at the end of the day.
So would you see that more as like a leadership challenge or an opportunity for growth? Because I have
Mhm,
been with so let's just say I maybe like 7, 8 years ago, I was heavily involved with a construction company and they also had like a service department and an HVAC department. And it was my job to come in as a consultant and clean up all their bad reviews online because it was really, really bad.
boy.
Yes. And they spent a lot of money bringing in tech to the company. I
Mhm,
would say it was a small to medium-sized company here in Las Vegas area, extended area, I'll say. And one of the things I noticed is they would come in and implement all this tech. They had a full-time web developer on staff, and then we bring in tech. But I noticed with the HVAC department specifically, like all the technicians, it was like pulling teeth to get them to use the tech. So how would you handle something like that if you were like, an owner or a high level manager in a company like that?
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me, not one bit, from seeing a variety of things out there. But, I think there's always a little bit of level setting, right? So
Okay.
you're going to have some of those team members that maybe they just don't get it. Maybe they need a little bit more help. Maybe they've been burned by tech in the past and they're just not that open to it. But for, the vast majority, there are some good best practices. I personally like to make sure that we're listening to them even before we go out to find a tech solution because then it signals to that group, hey, we really care about the processes that we're doing. We want to help you. We're looking for your input to help us find that best match. So they feel, they are a true key stakeholder. So we don't want to leave them out. So early involvement is key. And then, of course, some involvement with key champions who will be helping to spread the good word about this technology that's coming down the pipeline. Maybe they can test it out and pilot it and give some feedback, right? So that kind of builds some momentum. And then ultimately, when it gets to the stage of, okay, now we actually really are relying on these team members to utilize this new thing that we've just invested a whole ton of resources into really well, it really comes down to learning and development and training, which isn't, the flashiest part of tech and innovation, but it is one of those key levers that if you do it well, it opens up the gates to success. So, practically, what that looks like is creating trainings that are easily accessible, not too long, right? So we're in the age of short videos, quick hits, things that you can very quickly synthesize, understand how to use it, and go. So that simplicity is also key. And just in time training, too. So get it to the folks who need it exactly when they need it. And it tends to stick a little bit more.
I think that that's really important. You said something that really stuck with me just for a few minutes. Like you said, you want people to champion the new
Hmm.
tech rollout or things like that. And I was
Yeah.
thinking, with teams where you really want everybody to step into their own power and be really excited to use the tech and to implement it in their daily work life because I would think it would save them time and it would be easier, etcetera. But the idea of having a champion, like someone on the team that's like the person that everybody looks up to or that goes to ask all their questions, if that person becomes your champion, I think that that's a game changer.
Yeah, and I recently had this conversation too, where if the positive experience, again, from that technology innovation champ is, within that user group, and they're the ones saying, hey, I saved X amount of time by using this new tool that we're rolling out. You guys should check it out or really get into it. The rest of the same user group, right, peer to peer, it's gonna have a little bit more weight and significance than if it's from some outside party who's just like, "Oh, yeah, trust us, it's gonna work. We haven't actually ever done your job or your processes, but we know it's gonna work." Like, that doesn't hold as much weight as, like, your actual peer saying, "Hey, I'm gonna champion this. This is actually awesome. Let's get on board together to get to a successful place all in one."
Well, I think that that's super important. And then, we were talking tech. Now, here's AI now.
Yeah.
And, AI is changing so rapidly. Do you feel like that's gonna be, in a way, a hindrance in the sense that you roll out something new, people are just starting to adapt to it, and then, like, 3 months later, it all changes again? Or do you feel like it's the nature of the beast and you deal with it?
I lean towards it's the nature of the beast,
Yeah,
right? And we've seen this even before, the mass explosion of AI
right,
solutions for everything. It used to be like, oh, there's an app for everything. Now it's there's an AI for everything.
right.
So it hasn't necessarily changed, but maybe the rate of change has been quite a bit faster. I think what also is starting to shift is, and there's this whole like benefit reward thing as well as risk, really. We should frame it as risk. But there have been some like really, really interesting shifts in skill sets, right? So we see all different team members from all different, levels of the organization learning how to put in prompts to GPT type of solution, right? So prompt engineering is becoming a natural skill set that we're building. Things like open source coding for those who tend to be just a little bit more tech savvy, they can be like way more tech savvy if they have, an AI assistant that's helping them build that code. So it's interesting. So we're seeing a shift with like skill sets and then also like democratization of the tech to anyone who can just pick up these tools and kind of run with them. There's definitely more to see on the horizon. I would put a word of caution with all of that. Like, absolutely make sure you're responsible with your AI tools, the security protocols, where your data is going, like what's having access to that, and do's and don'ts. So, yeah, just a small caveat on that.
Well, there definitely is, and it's interesting, and this may be a little outside the construction space, but I still feel like it's something to talk about. I was actually reading an email. I got an email a couple days ago, and this guy was talking about how like these big, huge companies are spending so much money, with like Wikipedia pages, like all kinds of authority type sites. So they're like, okay, this is the information we want out there. This is like the truth. We want it out there. So that's what, like AEO, that's where it gets its information. So in a sense, you also have to look at like the data that you, especially as a smaller business, that you're pulling and using with your clients, your customers.
Right.
Is that data like real, or is it more skewed, right, to whatever big conglomerate, has in mind? And, that really made me think. And I thought, you know what? It's one thing to be really, really good at using AI. It's great to like create really cool tools and all of that, but you still need to use your brain. Like you still need
Yeah.
to like your well, and then I was reading another thing. I love to read. So I
Yeah.
was, yeah, there was something I think it was on Reddit and someone was sharing it was a manager work at a company and he was like, I just hired someone new. She's fresh out of college. She's great. But she always raises her hand and, like, basically always wants to challenge me, which I think is great. I think it's wonderful. He said, but every single thing it's coming from ChatGPT. And he's like, it's like the
Yeah.
critical thinking skills. And all of his other employees are like, 10 years older. So
Yeah.
there's that.
So, yeah, this is an important conversation too. I'm
Yeah.
so glad you bring it up, Angela, because when I say like, risk reward, like, but, positive, but negatives, that is one of the big ones, right? And it's a huge call to not just our industry, but like every single person who's going to interact with these tools to make sure that like you are the expert and to understand that like these tools are just tools, right? So, it's not, discerning to as to our experiences. We're humans. That's what makes us special and brings, gives us
Yeah.
value. So that's why I also take the perspective that yeah, we're not really going to lose jobs necessarily. I think they're going to shift and transform in order to pair well with these new AI tools that we have coming online, but it's really a call and responsibility on us even more as professionals to really be that expert and double check, right? So in construction, trust but verify, measure twice, cut once. So make sure we're doing that with these tools that sound smart, but they might just be just that. It might just be something that sounds good, but when you get into the details, it's worthless.
Well, exactly. And, I've talked to so many different people in different industries. And I was talking to someone a couple weeks ago in the, biohacking, if you will.
Hmm.
And they actually had a mandate come down that they don't want them to use AI for like looking at test results and things
Hmm,
like that. They want them to, do it the old fashioned way for right now because they ran into some issues with data.
sure.
I mean, I love AI. I'm the first to say like
Yeah,
I told you before, like, I'm an adrenaline junkie. Give me AI, give me tech, let me play, let me,
right.
look at any new marketing strategy with AI, let me play. But at the end of the day, like, I wanna still use my critical thinking skills. And I think as new generations come into the workplace or they're coming into the workplace, I think it's important as mentors that we have those kind of conversations.
Absolutely. And it's also using the right tool for the right job, right? So, like in your example there with, let's call it healthcare data, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely, be the expert, use your expertise, that's hard one,
Mhm.
your experience to sift through that data, but also one of the good things about, AI tools is they're really good at handling lots of data and
Mhm.
identifying trends and picking apart specific insights. So ask it that, find out some of those bits of information that, a human brain just isn't capable of, but take it with a grain of salt, right? So we're not just blindly trusting. So that actually is a really, really good example, but absolutely is totally part of like the mentorship piece in any industry.
Well, and that leads me to my next question. So, I've been helping construction and service based businesses for years, like 23 years. Well, that kind of ages me, but it's all
All
good.
good.
It's all good. And in the construction space, I mean, I'm a woman, you're a woman. How is that working it's still somewhat of a male dominated field. Is there anything that you could share with the, next generation of skilled people that are coming
Right.
into the workspace, and they might be a woman, what kind of tips, anything that you might wanna share as it relates to still being in a more male, I still think it's more male dominated right now.
Yeah, yeah, it for sure is, some
I'm
of the
trying to
stats.
be PC here,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah. Well, the stats and the data have gotten a little bit better, but
Yeah,
it's not super great. But yeah, to your question, like just pulling from my experience and what, I've seen in the industry is that asking good questions, being curious, have those really fuel yourself, right? So, I mean, don't be asking like a million and one questions to the same person, right? We want to be strategic and like thoughtful and, have valuable insight gained from our questions. So, but be confident with that, right? So, the only way you learn is by finding out. And the way you find out is you ask and, you figure out from others again who have more experience, like what is going on here. So that's something I wish I maybe did a little bit more very, very early on in my career is like ask just a few more questions just to figure things out. That would have helped me a bunch. And then for, reflecting back on my experience, it was a process, not really a process, but like I realized that this was just how I was being comfortable with being different or odd or, feeling in a like feeling that discomfort, right? So
yeah,
finding comfort in discomfort. So if like you're feeling off or not super confident, like a lot of times that's an indication that's an area to grow. So don't be
yes,
afraid of that necessarily and like lean into that. So your voice, your perspective has so much value and especially in innovation, like the things that I'm talking about, like curiosity, asking questions, understanding why, being confident too, like all leads to this place of innovation and continuous improvement. And then, there's some opportunities that come with that. So if you're looking for ways to improve things, it helps you shine in different areas that, you might be passionate about, right? So it could be, I don't know, estimating, scheduling, managing marketing. I don't know what it is, but
right.
be a little bit more comfortable in that uncomfortable, areas that might come up, in all over throughout life, right?
Well, I think that's wonderful. I actually have a niece, she's in her 20s, they just had their 2nd baby, and she's a welder.
Wow.
I
Yeah,
I'm like,
amazing.
isn't it? So when I first met her, so she's my nephew's wife. When I first met her and I heard that she was going to welding school, I'm like, "You go, girl." And she's really, really good. And I admire that. And then I was talking to a recruiter the other day, and he was just saying how there's so many what traditional blue collar
Mhm.
workers, like there's just a lack of skilled trades, and we know that. But he was talking about, they need welders, and I'm like, well, my
Right.
niece became a welder. I mean, like I would have never thought of that. Like I always thought, oh, that's a man, right? Like you just and I'm like, yeah, I think it's so fun and so cool. And then I found out that my sister in law's mom actually did welding back in the day. Like
Oh, yeah,
I'm like, "That's super, super cool."
that's
So,
really cool.
it's really cool,
Amazing.
and I just think, now because there's all these really cool different programs going into place all over the United States. I've been talking to so many men, so many women, apprenticeships, trade schools, all kinds of stuff, very outside of the box ways to help not only people that are going into the fields, like younger out of high school and into college, but even women, like say that you're a single mom and you were a grocery clerk and you want to do something different. I actually ran across a company that they will bring them in and train them like as an apprentice and then they give them a job. Like they pay them. It doesn't matter like what your career was or
Mhm.
anything, like that's a core value of theirs, and I'm like, "That is so cool."
A lot of
Just
opportunities, yeah.
yeah, the opportunities, so I love that. I really admire companies that are willing to innovate and bring women into the trades. I like that a lot. So my next question for you is, I know that you do consulting. Can you share what kind of clients work with you? And then if someone would be interested in talking to you, what that might look like?
Yeah, so high level contractors and startups.
Okay.
I focus a little bit on the contractor side. It's basically what I've been doing, for a while, right, in the industry. So I particularly enjoy like the strategic pieces of, hey, we don't have any sort of innovation funnel or plan to bring technology to our teams. How do we start doing that? So I can help with that strategy. And then if we kind of follow that through, it's like, okay, well, we're having these specific pain points. We need some support with getting an evaluation of solutions that could potentially be a good fit and like kind of walking through that selection process. And then also all the way through to that really important piece of training and implementation. So you can do all the previous stuff right and have your tech system go live and it will be worthless again if nobody's pressing the right button and is trained up. So all of
Right.
that stuff, I guess, falls, well within my umbrella. And then for startups, it's a variety of things because they are in all sorts of different phases and stages and things like that. But I do enjoy beta testing, giving feedback to teams that may be more tech focused and need some insight from the industry and more stuff like that. But yeah, that basically is what I focus on and what, keeps me going. Yeah.
Well, I remember the first time I talked to you before we decided to have you on the podcast, and I just thought you were super interesting and your career and what you've done and tech and all of that. So I'm really, really grateful that you came on and we had a conversation. So is there anything else, Erin, before we, sign off here that you would like to share with the audience?
Let's see. I guess what I've found in general, right, that has, helped me with innovation stuff and just with networking, connecting back to the community. Someone's asking for maybe 10, 15 minutes of time just to go through an idea or maybe, hey, is there a way we can fix this or improve this? Or it's a tech solution saying, hey, I have something that might be able to help you. Take a chance, check it out. It helps just keep a pulse on what's out there so that you can be a little bit more informed and insightful when you actually do have to tackle that problem and bring people in and things like that. So I always like to encourage just the collaboration in the industry. And then if anybody wants to connect with me, my LinkedIn is always open. So it's not a bot. I promise it's not an AI bot. It's a human on my messages. So good
Absolutely.
to
Well,
know.
and just for all the audience watching this, you can find her information, her website, and her LinkedIn connection, and all of that stuff either below or on the side, depending on where you find this episodes. Yeah, anywhere around. So,
Yeah.
thank you so much, Erin. Thank you, listeners. I appreciate you, and we'll see you on the next episode of Savage Angel. Bye for now.